Give us a little bit of your background and your family's background.
Yes, so I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. My family, we're all from Puerto Rico. I left shortly after Hurricane Maria hit our island and obviously our community as well. We were months without power, without water, any of our basic necessities, and so we obviously felt the need to relocate and go into the mainland U.S. And I went to Arizona. I finished my bachelor's and my master's degree there at Arizona State University, and I'd always been conservative, at least since like my first year of college when I started college back in Puerto Rico. It's a fun fact that I like to always say that I used to be a Democrat, but then I changed my mind after doing my research and talking to my family and figuring out what exactly my values were and are currently and what I'm aligned more. And I definitely feel more conservative. I'm pro-life. I believe in limited government, and that's what ultimately led me to support Donald Trump. I faced a bunch of backlash, evidently, back in college, especially, but that just made me stronger in my beliefs and felt and made me feel a lot more confident in what I was doing and the fact that, especially comparing his administration to the current administration that we have with Biden Harris, it's more evident now than ever that his policies were actually working to uplift my community, my family, and the community of the people that I know of in terms of the economy and cost of living.
All right, well, let's talk about that. And I appreciate that. That's why I wanted you to come on, because I want to talk about the issues. But I do want to talk about rhetoric, because Donald Trump has talked about that. Obviously, Kamala Harris has talked about that. You being an immigrant who came into this country, which I think is awesome. I want to know what, I'm sorry, go
Technically,
ahead.
I'm not sorry. Technically, I'm not an immigrant. So those of us
Okay.
that were born in Puerto Rico were born as U.S. citizens.
Right. Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, yeah.
My mistake. I misspoke there. Thank you for correcting me. So I want to ask you this with your background, like what goes through your mind? And I'm sure you've been asked this question before. When Donald Trump tells members of the squad to go back to their S-hole countries, when he talks about dogs and cats being eaten by legal Haitian immigrants, I understand you like some of his policies, and I definitely want to talk to you about that. I definitely want to talk to you about your criticisms of the Harris campaign. But when he makes a statement like that, I'm wondering what goes through your mind, and are you okay with that?
I'm fine with it. I mean, he's saying the truth with what a lot of these countries are undergoing. And it's the fact that, for example, at least in my island, we have a very corrupt local government. And that's partly the reason why a lot of people have ended up fleeing into the mainland. And obviously, the hurricane was a big factor at play, but the constant and persistent corruption, the mismanagement of funds back home is what has also ultimately led a lot of people to flee out of desperation to seek a better economic livelihood in this main country. So what he's saying, I mean, I know it might not sound pretty. He doesn't really have a filter, but that's partly the reason why a lot of Latinos, including myself, are leaning a lot more towards Donald Trump is because he doesn't say things in a way that's gonna coddle our feelings and make us feel, like he's trying to protect us, when in reality it's his actions that have shown and proven that he is capable of protecting us. It's not so much about the words and the rhetoric, but more so the actions and the policies that he implemented. And he actually passed, at least like surpassing the local government's budget, which is $9 billion a year. He had approved more than $20 billion, a historic amount in terms of funding for the infrastructure and helping the island shortly after the hurricane. Now, whether that money was used wisely, that's definitely something that could be discussed at a later time. But what we're seeing on the island is that unfortunately our local government is incapable of managing those funds, and a lot of them
Mhm.
are actually Democrat and progressive. So yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean, all in all, I don't feel offended whatsoever. And when he talks about as well, like illegal migrants that are here committing crimes, I'm
What
sorry, but
about
I don't
legal?
feel identified with that because I'm not committing any crimes.
Understood. And I would never say that you are, but I guess going back to this, and then we can move on to something else. He's specifically talking about legal Haitian immigrants in Springfield, and I think it's fair game to talk about policy and policy disagreements. I have no problem with that. I do it all the time. I'm sure you do. But when you say something that's not true, for example, they're stealing our pets and they're eating them, talking about legal Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio. And as you know, right, there were bomb threats and over 50 threats to that community. When the local mayor, who's Republican, says that it wasn't true, when the Republican governor of the state says it wasn't true, the city manager, the police chief, you still don't have a problem with Donald Trump and JD Vance, let's just call it for what it is, lying and saying that they're eating our pets, our cats and dogs. You don't have a problem with that statement?
If you want to focus on that statement, it's because you frankly have nothing better to criticize in terms of actual policies for
No, I
the
do.
for
I do
Donald
actually.
Trump and JD
No, I
Vance.
do. I do actually, and we'll go into that, and I'll
Well,
move
then
on
why
after
are we
this question.
focusing on something that occurred probably over a month ago now, if we want to talk about it, and we're not focusing on the real issues that actually Americans are caring about and that want to see
Well,
solutions
because
for?
people have called into my, and then we'll move on, but people have called into my radio show from Springfield, Ohio, because this is a national show, and they feel like they've been terrorized in that community, and kids have gone to school, and there's been bomb threats because of hateful rhetoric. That's why I'm asking you the question. If you don't want to answer it, that's fine. We can move on.